There's a lot of Christian churches there. There's also Muslim churches as well. Yeah, the Muslim religion is there. Jehovah's Witnesses, which I was surprised are also there. Like every single like religion you can think of is there, and so everybody likes to talk about the gospel and is open to talk to you. You can't really like knock on doors and tract there because of like the housing situation is so different. Like first there's the wall with the door. You open up the wall, and in some cases like a courtyard with like different doors surrounding the courtyard, or like some ways it just like look like this like alleyway with like other like doors around there. So like tracting is kind of different as well. Like you don't really you can knock on people's doors, but it's really like not effective. Really, you just like have to like stop them on the street or like sit down next to them and be like, oh, we're missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We talk about Jesus Christ. You have time to talk to us? And that way is like the first step. The most effective way of getting people is from referrals. It's the same as the state. If you get a referral, they're bound to be baptized pretty much. It's just always getting them to church. That's the problem. We usually, if we drove, like if we took a taxi, if the church was really far away from our place, we would take a taxi and we'd also take the me's with us in the taxi to church. And you'd get roughly like close to like 150 to 100 people every week at church. Unless it rained, then there'd be like 10. Because if it rains, no one does anything. They stay inside, like, because the streets are just flood and they're just scared of it. I don't know. They're superstition, I guess. But yeah, if it rains, everything's just like shut down. And it's quite interesting. The way the church was in Togo, as well as in Benin, but in Togo specifically, there's 7 branches to start out with. And to get a kind of good feel, if you understand your church history pretty good, or like a grasp of it, we were kind of like in the Kirtland area. To be quite honest, going to Togo, to Africa, was kind of like taking a time machine and going back in time. Literally, like, the way the church was, it just seemed like we were in the Kirtland area of the time. Like, there's some, like, weird stuff going on that you, like, had no experience with, and then there's just so many, like, things happening that the church was, like, growing at the same time, that it was a crazy experience. You'd get a lot of inactives. The ratio of active members to inactive members was like 1/3 of them were active. And there's no postal system, so like describing where someone lives, you have to like really like describe on like this one line, or like on the back of the investigator paper, like where they live. Oh, find this tree and take a right or a left, something like that. Usually by their telephone number, but even then that doesn't really work out. But like it was like 15 years since the gospel's been there for a while, and the mission didn't really like start on its own until the Civil War in the Ivory Coast in 2012. That's when the mission really became its own mission. Otherwise, it was a part of the Ivory Coast mission before, and then became its own mission because of the Civil War, because then they had to take all the American missionaries out and some other missionaries from the Ivory Coast mission and like stick them in Benin and Togo. And then they actually had a mission president there. Like before, there was no mission president in Benin and Cotonou, so the missionaries there kind of like did their own thing, sort of. The mission president was in the Ivory Coast before, but now, since it became its own, the missionary president was in Benin, which is like 5 hours of a drive from Benin to Togo. So like, the mission president could be in and out, or the assistants can be in and out and deal with problems if the needed arise. But other than that, it's kind of just like, it was pretty small. It is in its young stage, but it was rapidly growing. Yeah, you'd baptize a good number of people throughout your mission. Like, granted, if I want to throw out a number, like I know how many baptisms I had is like 26. But whether or not they're active or not, I think like half of them are. Because the thing about culturally, there's not a lot of trust. There's not really a lot of friendship. It's sad. It's really sad, actually. I was kind of heartbroken that like there wasn't really many friends that these many people have. So when the missionaries came, like they came every day or so teaching, there's like this really strong bond. So if the missionary left, the person they baptized usually fell inactive because they like got converted to the missionary more than the gospel. But if someone was converted to the gospel, they were really strong and they would stay faithful like probably forever. Because they're pretty strong people in faith and believe in God, which is great. When they get converted to the gospel. So it usually depended. And then home teaching as well. If they don't do it, then that's a problem. But that's understandable. It happens all the time. But it's ever since I was on my mission, like it started with 7 branches, and throughout the 2 years it became 10. And at the end of my mission, near the end, I think like 2 months before it ended, I'm not really sure, we got a stake. And then 5 of those 10 became wards. And then the mission and the church became separate, because before it's a district, and the mission kind of runs up. Like the district president reports to the mission president, and then everything. Like the missionaries had a lot of power, to be quite honest. Say it straight, we kind of run the whole entire church there. Until it became a stake, then the missionaries could focus on the mission, church business could focus on church business, and then everything can move on slowly from there on.